Evening everyone, welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. If you'd like to join us, I bring my requests on a Tuesday, and then on a Thursday I like to bring stories that you might not have heard of. If you'd like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/dashrose5472. Hope you're all okay out there. Not sure if you've heard about this one. It is all over the TikTok, as I've said. So you may well have heard of it. But yeah, I'm going to start now. So I've titled it Hell on Wheels. You'll be able to see why I've titled it that in a set. Well, towards the end. It's the appalling Mackenzie Shirilla story. It's all right. Okay, so, oh God. Oh, okay. That noise there should tell you everything you need to know about this story coming up. Okay, so we have Mackenzie Shirilla, born on the 2nd of August 2004 in Strongsville, Ohio. I can never say that place. It's obviously a US story. Ohio. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure you know what I mean. Okay, her mum Natalie Shirilla, her dad John Stephen. Now, Mackenzie, a little bit about her. Lovely, sweet girl when she was younger. She did start to change as she got to her teenage years, as we all do. And obviously, as we know with teenagers now, they have the added pressure of social media. You can't do anything without your photo being up there, or you want to make sure your photos are up there, or videos, etc. So all that became a thing with her as well. Very pretty girl. It said she was quite entitled, this girl was. Now, once she got to high school, she started to become a little bit rebellious, started smoking weed in high school, things like that. Nothing that you would think any different to any other teenager out there. Of course you can get amazing teenagers that don't change, or they are, just golden. They just get better and better and better. But for the most part, we know 13 to 18, nightmare. Okay, and she was no different. Okay, now we have another lad. A lad I'm going to bring into the story for you. His name's Dominic Russo. Born on the 24th of September 2001, also in Strongsville, Ohio. Oh, I said it then. Got a bit excited then. His mum, Christine, dad, Frank. Now, he was one of 8 siblings. So a big family. It said boys' family. Very good sense of humour. Quite athletic in high school. Very well liked. Really popular. Started making and producing music during high school, quite a young age. Somewhat of an entrepreneur, you could say, Dominic was. But it said that because he was always about looking out for other people. He had a very good, strong friend group. He was always there to help anyone who needed it. And it said, based on this, he wanted to join the military. Okay. Now, when he got to about the age of 20, so that would be in 2021, okay, he started seeing Mackenzie Shirilla. Okay. Now, she was 17 at that time, so it said they did keep it under wraps for a little bit, but I'm thinking it may have been more her doing, but they went public with their relationship quite soon. It was only after a couple of weeks, and before you know it, there was pictures of them and videos, and their friends were all happy for them. They seem like a very nice couple, and they seem to get on very well. Now, I'm going to introduce one more person to you. His name is Davion Flanagan. Okay, so a little bit about Davion. He was born on the 4th of August 2003 in Cleveland. I believe that's Ohio as well. His mum, Jamie, dad, Scott. Now, Jamie and Scott are actually Davion's adoptive parents, okay? Because Davion actually had a really rough start to life, okay? He's got two younger biological sisters, and the three of them were severely neglected by their biological parents. Severely neglected. There was a lot of violence in the home. There was a lot of drugs. It's a really rough start to life for Davion and his two sisters. Okay. Now both parents of these three ended up going into prison, and giving away their parental rights to Davion and his two sisters. So the three kids ended up going into foster care. But in 2011, when Davion was about age 8, the three kids were adopted by Jamie and Scott. Okay, Jamie and Scott Flanagan. So that's why Davion Flanagan. And I just thought, what I thought was lovely was, it's unusual, let's say, one for three siblings to be adopted. And also the fact that Davion was 8. For the most part, you hear that people who want to adopt, they want to adopt much younger children. And I just thought it was lovely. I thought it was lovely to hear that from such a rough start, that, and Davion says, I've been given a second chance. And I thought he just seemed like such a lovely boy. Now Davion did have to go for therapy for the trauma he was inflicted upon him by his biological parents. The fingers are up. The trauma what him and his sisters were put through, it's very sad. So he was behind at school. But Jamie and Scott got him extra tuition, quite what's the words I'm looking for? An intense tuition to get him through high school. And he was only a class behind by the time he graduated. So he actually graduated at age 19. He made himself and his family, of course, so proud. So proud of him. He was a very good athlete while he's in school. He was on the football team. But what he actually wanted to do, he wanted to go to barber school, like to be a barber. And it was, you hear when people talk about it, because he did end up graduating quite well. He was doing very well at school, and people thought I don't know, maybe they expected him to maybe want to go into a corporate job, or something like that. But he wanted to go to barber school. He wanted to he wanted to open his own shop. That's what he wanted to do. And he just seemed like such a sweet boy. He did. Now, back to Dominic and Mackenzie. All right. Now, if you remember, I did mention about Mackenzie. She's a little bit entitled, this girl. She's seemed to be quite spoilt, you might say, by John and Natalie, her parents. And the couple would row sometimes. They started off very close, and she seemed really sweet at first, but it didn't take very long for a different side of Mackenzie to come out. It didn't take long for that. Now Dom, obviously being a couple of years older than Mackenzie, he wasn't really interested in the games. He wasn't really interested in these, I suppose you could say, teenage straps that she'd pull. He wasn't really on that. And he would want to break up with Mackenzie. Sometimes he'd just have enough. And she wouldn't put up with it. She wouldn't want to put up with it, and she'd turn up at his house. Now Dom, fortunately, would record these interactions where she would turn up at his house. No, he wouldn't be letting her in, but she'd be very threatening outside his house, and she'd say things like, if you don't let me in, I'm going to key your car, I'm going to scratch your car. You don't want to know what I'll do if you don't let me in. Quite a threatening. I mean, she was tiny. She was 2 foot small. She wasn't some big, powerful girl that he would have been. You would imagine he would have been frightened of physically. But yeah, she was. She had a bit of a nasty streak, did Mackenzie. Okay, so eventually, he tried to break up with her, and although he did break up with her, she was very manipulative as well, it was said. And Mackenzie wasn't used to not getting her own way. She just wasn't. You can tell. I've seen videos of her parents. You can see that this girl, she got what she wanted, when she wanted it, that kind of way. All right. So they get back together, all right, in time for a party that a mutual friend of theirs was throwing, and all their friend group was going. And Mackenzie was quite excited about this party, and people said that if they felt like maybe she'd learned a lesson about being too forceful with Dominic, and she was quite sweet even when they got back together. And people thought, well, maybe she's changed, maybe she's realised she can't throw these straps and be threatening, and he's not going to put up with that sort of behaviour from her. So people thought, okay, this is good. People liked seeing them together. They thought they made a good couple. It was just her immaturity, let's say, that caused problems. So we get to the 30th of July 2022. Okay, it's a Saturday night. It's the night of the big party. They've all got ready. Dominic and Mackenzie turn up, and for the friends that didn't know they were back together, they were all excited, and it was said that they seemed to have a really good time together that night. Now, Davion also, he turned up to the party, and now Davion, he didn't have a particular clique. His mum said, he says he was friends with everybody. He wasn't in a clique, as you would call it. So he turned up to the party. Now, Mackenzie and Dominic, he just recently started kind of hanging about with them. But like I say, he was friends to everybody. So he just seemed like a great lad that you'd want to have around. And so, at the party, everyone's having fun. It's going really well. And just lots of drinking, dancing, etc. And just as you'd expect any other party to go, really. It goes on into the early hours. So we get to the 31st of July 2022, which is obviously the Sunday morning. It's carried on into the early hours, as I've just said. And it's about 5 a.m. Now, Dominic and Davion, they've actually fell asleep at this party. Mackenzie wasn't. Mackenzie wasn't asleep. And anyway, it gets to 5 a.m. and she's driving. Um, and she wakes Dominic up and she's like, come on, I'll drop you home. So as Dominic's coming round and he's getting his shoes on, everything else, ready to leave with her, Davion wakes up and he asks, look, would you mind dropping me back on the way? And, he wasn't out of her way by any means. So she agrees. Okay. I think I heard she did say no at first. But Dominic was like, why? Come on, let's just drop him home. So she agrees to it. And they all get in the car. And they head back. Now, Mackenzie had a 2018 Toyota Camry, apparently. Now, she had her seatbelt on. Apparently the other two didn't. Dominic was in the passenger seat. Davion was in the back. Both of them were kind of falling in and out of sleep. It's by this point, it's cracking on for like 5:30 in the morning. And they're driving along, and to get to Davion's house, they would need to go straight on. But Mackenzie does a right onto a road called Progress Drive. Okay. Now, up until this point, Mackenzie was driving very carefully. She was indicating when she should. The roads are very quiet. So, if she put foot down slightly or was being a bit erratic with her driving, there wasn't anyone around, but she wasn't. She was very, very carefully driving. Until she does a right down Progress Drive. Now, like I say, to get to Davion's house, she would have needed to have gone straight on. She didn't. She turned right. Now, the right she went down was it led to like an industrial estate. There was no reason to go down this road because none of them lived down there. So Davion's sort of like, you've missed the turning. And she begins to put her foot down. Okay, now, from beginning to the end of this road, this drive, is about 3/4 of a mile long. It's a dead straight road. It's a dead straight run. And like I say, at the end, well, either side, it's all industrial. Very quiet down there. And all of a sudden, Mackenzie's hitting 100 miles an hour. At the end of the road was a brick building. Okay. And the road is straight and the brick building was just off to the right. So as you sort of come to the end, you come to the end of the road, there's grass, there's a couple of bollards, and if you come past those bollards onto the grass, there's a brick building right there. And she plows in to the brick building at 100 miles an hour. Okay. Now, being a Sunday, like I say, early hours, it's at this point 5:37, I believe, a.m. There's no one around. There's no one around when this car plows into this wall. All right. A man just happens to come down that road 45 minutes later, sees this car basically split in half, and of course phones 911 straight away. Now, Strongsville police arrive. And you can see the footage. You know, they all have cameras now, don't they? The police do. And the first policeman to turn up on the scene, he's shocked. You can hear it. You can hear it, you know, him talking to kind of himself as he's walking up to the car, and he's like, oh my God. And then he gets onto the radio and he's like, the car's basically split in two. And then he's like, he can see one person in the driver's seat, and he's telling dispatch, you know, we need the fire truck, and, you know, to get, it was quite obvious she was stuck, to get her out. Then as he walks round, he sees Dominic in the passenger seat, so he calls in, he's like, oh my God, there's two. And then he looks again and he can see Davion in the back, and you hear him go, oh, there's three of them, there's three, there's three. You can hear the absolute distress on this policeman's, as he's talking over the radio. You can hear how distressed he is. And then you start to see other police officers come down, and, you know, you hear one of them say, this is the worst I've ever seen, you know. Now, as the ambulance and the fire truck turn up, and, you know, they can tell that although Mackenzie is unconscious, she's still alive, okay? And they need to cut her out. Unfortunately, though, Dominic and Davion wouldn't be so lucky, and they were pronounced dead at the scene. 19 and 20 years old. Just such a shame. Just such a shame, okay? And like I say, Mackenzie was still alive, but she's pinned into the vehicle, all right? Now, you do hear one of the police officers sort of, they were so upset at what they were seeing. They couldn't believe what they were looking at. They didn't know how it had happened. You know, you hear one of them say, obviously talking to Dominic and Davion, rest in peace, buddy. You know, it was just a very sad to view, so it's very sad to listen to. I can't imagine what it was like to actually be there. Now, Mackenzie was life flighted, obviously helicopter, to try and save her. And also at the same time, Dominic and Davion's parents have to be told. Awful. Awful. Again, the footage has been released. It's heartbreaking to watch. I mean, Dominic's mum, it's it's just awful. You can't imagine how these families, how this mum felt in that moment. You know, and she's listening, and, you know, they're talking through the car crash and everything else, and you can kind of tell by her face in that moment as she's talking, as she's listening to them. You can tell she doesn't think that they're going to tell her that her son's dead. And it's absolutely heartbreaking when they finally say it. It really is. It's awful to watch. Like I say, it is online. Now, Mackenzie, well, she was in hospital for weeks. She had to have many surgeries. You know, she was in a bad way. You know, they played into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. It was a miracle the girl survived. It really was. Now, like I say, she did have her seatbelt on. I don't believe the other two boys did. But yeah, she was in a bad way. Now, when they done blood tests, obviously, because they want to know, she was driving, they want to know what's caused this, what on earth happened, why were they on this industrial estate, how did they end up in this in this brick wall building. How did it happen? Sorry, I've got myself all stuttered because I just can't imagine. I can't imagine hearing what that mum had to. Just awful. You know, your kid just goes to a party, and awful. So they do tests on her, and she does test positive for THC. Okay, they think maybe she's crashed because she was high. Maybe they start looking at different things. Well, their friends. Now remember, I said Dominique, sorry, what am I talking about? Dominique had a great friend group. He was a great friend to everyone. Same with Davion. They were just the life and soul of the parties. Their friends, they were questioning this. And some of the friends went down to the crash site afterwards. And when some of their friends come to also speak to the police, because obviously they would wanted to speak to everyone who was at the party that night, some of the friends said, "Have you noticed there was no skid marks? There was no. It was like she didn't try and brake. There was no brake marks. There was nothing. All that was noticeable that was from the road, technically, she should have gone into those bollards. That I say bollards are, I don't know what I'm pantsing. I say about a foot high. Okay, these stones. Well, she didn't go into them. She kind of veered off and then went straight for the building. So the police start talking to these friends and they're like, right, tell us a bit more about the relationship. And the friends come forward and they say, he was trying to finish with her. She wouldn't let him go. And the police are asking, do you think there's more to this? And the friends they just don't know, but they just think it's very, very fishy. So do the police, because the police managed to get a hold of CCTV from all those buildings. Don't forget, it's an industrial estate, so all these warehouses have CCTV. And they start looking at the CCTV footage. And as I said to you earlier, she was driving, she was seen on the footage driving perfectly normal, perfectly responsible, perfectly as you would want a designated driver to drive, up until she'd done that right on Progress Drive. And all of a sudden, it was like a foot just went bang. And you can see the footage online. Oh my God, the speed that car goes past that camera. And then just off camera, you see the car crash. And it must have been absolutely terrifying. Now, as Mackenzie comes home, as she's released from a hospital, the boys are being buried. Okay? So, now, like I say, the police have spoken to all their friends and everything else. The police are starting to watch Mackenzie now. They want to know what she does now she's out of hospital. And oh my God, she comes out of hospital, okay? Now, it said that, she was wearing his clothes and she was so devastated and she was listening to his music. Do you remember I said he was a music producer and, he was very, I think he released some music as well, and she was only listening to his music and she was only eating the foods he liked, and all of this sort of stuff. But then, a couple of weeks after she gets out of the hospital, she goes to a concert. And there's TikTok. Remember I says social media was everything to this girl. So there's TikTok videos and Instagram posts of her in a wheelchair, but like in kind of a bikini top with her hair in space buns, going to a concert, and it's like, you, your boyfriend, who was your whole world, you're telling everyone. You know, she kept putting posts up on his Facebook page, you know, about how much she missed him and she loved him and she couldn't be without him. And then she's at a concert. Then we get to the 31st of October 2022. So this would be 3 months after this accident. My fingers are up. And there's pictures, Instagram posts and TikTok videos of her going to trick-or-treating for Halloween. Now, my idea of trick-or-treating is it's for kids. Kids get dressed up and kids go out and do trick-or-treating. That's my idea of trick-or-treating. Well, as we know, she turned 18 2 days after this crash. And so I don't think she was trick-or-treating as we know it. And she certainly wasn't dressed that way, because Mackenzie decided to dress up as, I don't know if you've ever heard lean, and it's a drink, and it's cough mixture mixed with alcohol of some sort. It's supposed to be ridiculous. It's supposed to be really dangerous for young people to drink. Anyway, she was dressed up as this drink. That was her one outfit. Her other outfit, oh my God. She dressed up as a corpse. 3 months after the love of her life and her friend, their mutual friend, have died in a car she was driving, and she dresses up as a corpse. Not only does she dress up as a corpse, she does a TikTok where, I don't know if you know some TikTok videos, but you have people who are dressed normal, you know, normal. There's sometimes, for the most part, they try and dress themselves down. They don't have makeup on. It's all like, oh, look how ugly I am. And then they sweep their hand over the screen, and all of a sudden they turn into like 10 out of 10 with filters galore. And that was the video she did. She had herself looking like, and she does look very young. I mean, even in it, she looks about 15. Obviously, like I say, she has turned 18 at this point. But then she sweeps the camera, and her and her friend are all dressed up to the tent. And just so many photos of her out for this Halloween with her friends, having a whale of a time. 3 months. That's all 12 weeks. That's all it's been. Okay. Then she does a TikTok video. Now, I'm presuming it's some sort of song. It's not anything I've heard of. I'll probably sound stupid when, if you are on TikTok, you'll probably be like, have you not heard that? But there's a type of song where it's a girl singing, and she sort of, in this video, you've got Mackenzie in there's different photos of her for each line of this particular song, and it ends with, I'm one you would die for. I'm a girl you would die for. Something like that. But, oh my God, tone deaf does not even, it doesn't even touch, I was about to say touch the sides with this girl, but oh my God. So, also, just one last kicker. There's also an email that's found by the police because they're looking through her phone. They've obviously found CCTV footage. They want to look for her phone and everything else. And they see that there's an email. Sorry, well, it is an email, but it's on Facebook, okay? And it's from a talent agency, like a modelling agency. And it's asking her to get in touch, okay? And her mum replies, right? It's basically saying, "Oh my God, we've been waiting so long for you. Now this talent agency, what they know what's happened, so they pass the condolences on in this post as well." And her mum replies with the most disgusting thing I think I've ever read. And it was, "Thank you so much for getting in touch, and oh my God, we've been trying to get in touch with you for the longest time. And yeah, she's finding it really hard. She's probably finding it the hardest of all." I'm sorry. Say it again. So repeat it again. And then Mackenzie writes underneath what her mum's written. And also, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've been trying to get hold of you for the longest time." And oh my God, it's just ridiculous. So all of it, now all of this on its own, when I'm talking about the Facebook posts and the TikTok videos and Instagram posts and everything else, all of that, it suggests tone deaf, it suggests narcissistic, it suggests cruel, it suggests all of the above, but it still doesn't prove that it was anything more than an accident. Okay? But what does prove that it was more than an accident was the black box that was in her car. Now, they did checks on the car and there was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with the brakes, because people were suggesting maybe she tried to press on the brakes and the brakes weren't working. She had a lot of defenders, let me say that. There was a lot of people jumping to this girl's defence, saying how much she loved him and she would never hurt him. So there was nothing wrong with the car, okay, for a start. The black box showed her acceleration on Progress Drive. Not only her acceleration, but the fact that not once did she attempt to slow down. Not once did she attempt, let alone brake, but even to just lift her foot slightly. Her foot was flat on that accelerator. And the black box proved that. The CCTV, obviously, that I've mentioned, the CCTV also shows her driving along before she turns onto Progress Drive, driving perfectly, because, of course, it could be said that, she was driving erratic the whole time and, she shouldn't have been behind the wheel, but it was still an accident. Wow, she was driving perfectly fine before she did that right, before she turned onto that road, indicating within the speed limit, within the lanes, driving perfectly fine, okay? And then, also, what was the real kicker is, I remember I said they were looking at her phone. Well, when they checked the maps on her phone, they found that she'd been on Progress Drive before. She'd been on there a couple of times on Progress Drive within a few days of the so-called accident. Why would she have been on that road? You remember me saying, dead end, industrial estate. Why was she there? What other answer can there be? All the evidence screams that this girl had decided that if he wasn't going to be with her, he wasn't going to be with anybody, and she was going to make sure of it. So on the 4th of November 2022, Mackenzie is arrested and charged with murder. Okay. Now, she thought she was very clever. Because remember I said she'd been checking out this road and everything else beforehand. Well, Mackenzie was 17 on the day of the accident, so-called accident, okay? And she turned 18 2 days later, as we know. So because she was 17, they would have to charge her as a juvenile, okay? Now, when you see when this girl's arrested and she's brought into the police station, oh, she's crying and she's tearing and she's looking at the camera and she's all very, very dramatic and oh my God, but at the same time, please can you take my bracelet off carefully? I don't want it broken, as they're putting the handcuffs on. So her priorities were straight. And then when she's in the police station, oh, it's ace, because they take her out the back and her mum and dad turn up, Natalie and John. And John's there and oh, he's very demanding. How dare you have brought my little girl in here? Do you know what she's been through? She loved that boy. It was an accident, and etc. etc. And he says, well, you can't talk to her. You can't talk to her without us. And they're like, she's 18. We don't need your permission to talk to her. And you see it dawn on him. It was fabulous. It was absolutely fantastic to watch. And he was like, well, she can't talk without a lawyer. And the fact is, she has to ask for that lawyer. And the police officer says, well, she hasn't asked for a lawyer. And he was like, she can't talk to you without a lawyer. And he's like, well, if she asks for one, we will get her one. But she is an adult. She will need to ask for that. And she's out the back. She can't hear her dad. And you even hear her dad say, when he says again, she's an adult, she's 18 years old, he goes, well, she's a stupid 18-year-old. Basically saying she's too thick to catch on, that she shouldn't be talking without a lawyer. And I just thought it was ace to watch someone really get put in their place. And not only that, it dawned on him that him throwing his weight about in the front of the police station wasn't gonna do anything, because she turned 18. She's a legal adult. Okay? So that's online. You can see it. But as for Mackenzie, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong with that she was stupid, because she actually turned around and just says, can't you just take my license away for 10 years or something? What? Oh my God. Then it went to, I don't remember. I can't remember. I can't remember anything about the crash. So she's literally trying to take away any wrongdoing whatsoever. I can't remember. So if I can't remember, I loved him. I loved him so much. I would never have hurt him. So if I can't remember doing it, then I guess it didn't happen. So the prosecution actually offer her a plea deal. Okay, but she turns it down. She wants to go to trial. Mackenzie does. But she wanted a bench trial instead of a jury trial. So she wanted the judge to make the decision rather than having a jury. Okay. Now, because she had turned 18, the prosecution were like, no, we're going to try her as an adult. And they do. They do. Even though technically she was a minor, she was technically a child when the accident happened. It was only 2 days before she turned 18. So, they try her as an adult. Now, the prosecution themselves go through all the videos. As I told you at the beginning, where she's threatening Dominic, and and her tone, she hasn't got this sickly sweet little tone that everyone else hears. It's a real manipulative, just brutal tone that she uses with him. Like, if you don't let me in, basically the video he was recording was her saying, let me in your house. He'd finished with her, and she's demanding that he opens the door, or she's going to break the door. And then when he's still saying no, I'm going to scratch your car, I'm going to key your car. Very threatening girl. And although he's got her on camera at this point, there was other times that, she threatened him. Then we find out that a couple of weeks before this happened, she'd actually threatened him in the car previous to this. And she actually says to him, I'm going to crash this car. This is 2 weeks before this murder of these two innocent lads. And he has to literally phone his mum while he's in the car with her and say, come and pick me up. Come and get me. Come and have me. I think he couldn't get through to his mum, and his friend come and got him. And she pulls over the car, and he gets out, and he tells his friend, she was threatening to crash the car with me in it. So, it's such a shame he got in the car with her. But as I mentioned, when they got back together, she put on this very, she'd realised, she was going to lose him, and she didn't want to lose him. So she felt she had to change. So everyone says just how nice she'd become, and, how sweet she'd become and everything else. But it was all fake. It was all, she knew what she was going to do. She'd planned it. And then what they said, though, is that she just didn't, what went wrong was she didn't plan to live. What she thought it would be a murder-suicide. Now, poor Davion, he had obviously nothing to do with it at all. He just wanted a lift home. And this girl obviously had put a plan into place, and whether there was someone else in the car or not, she was following through on the plan she'd gone over in her head. And not only in her head, she'd actually gone out and worked out how long this road was, how fast she was going to go. She knew to turn to avoid those stones, to go into that brick building. It was all planned out. I just don't think she planned to live and to have to face the consequences of what she'd done. Okay. So that was the prosecution. Now the defense, just basically she can't remember anything. It was an accident. She didn't mean it. She doted on him. She would never do that. By the way, did I tell you she can't remember anything? This was a defense. It was ridiculous. Now the judge, the reason I've titled this story Hell on Wheels is because that's exactly what the judge said. She said, that's what you turn this into, hell on wheels. She says, this wasn't an accident. This was murder. That's what this was. And also she notes, with the TikTok videos, and I'm saying TikTok video, I mean all social media. I mean every bit of her behaviour after the fact showed an utter lack of remorse for what she'd done. Okay. So the judge, like I say, there was no jury, but the judge, I don't know whether she thought it'd be easier just having to convince a judge rather than 12 of her peers. but the judge weren't having any of it, and the judge found her guilty of 12 charges, including murder. Okay. Now, before the sentence was handed down, there was an opportunity for victim statements to be read out. Now, the first one to read their statement was Davion's mom, Jamie. Now, she was quite soft. Just obviously talking about Davion in the nicest possible way, just how much they all missed him, and just basically said the world has lost such a special man. Really, really, really upsetting to watch and to listen to his online, like I say. But she just mainly spoke about Davion and just how empty the family are, and his sisters, and also the fact that he'd had such a rough start to life, and the fact that he believed he'd been given a second chance when they adopted him, and she took that away. Then Dominic's mum got up, Christine. She was a lot more scathing, okay? And I think it was more at the fact that she says that on the day that she just found out that her son has died, she gets a phone call from Natalie, which is Mackenzie's mom, just basically phoning her up. Well, there was a missed call, so she called Natalie back. And Dominic's mum says that when she called her back, it was to see how Mackenzie was, because she knew Mackenzie was alive. She knew she was in hospital. And she just wanted to see how Mackenzie was. And when she spoke to Natalie, Natalie was just very much like, take no notice of the Facebook posts, they're calling her a murderer, don't listen to anything. And Christine just turned around and says, Facebook? My son's dead? And she puts the phone down on her, quite rightly. So she does talk about that, and she says, when the judge had said that Mackenzie had been found guilty, apparently the reaction of Mackenzie's family in the back of the courtroom, she says it showed that there was no remorse. There was no remorse from any of them. There's no sympathy for us. They're just looking out for Mackenzie. They don't care about us, that kind of reaction. And she thanked obviously the police for all their, investigation and getting the CCTV footage, all the friends that came forward and everything else. She says, because now I know it was murder. She says, I lost 3 kids. So she obviously thought a lot of Mackenzie originally. So that was Dominic's mum. And then Mackenzie's mum gets up. Oh my God. Natalie. I've actually written down here, and I don't normally tell you what I've written down, but I've actually written the word knob. I have. Because, oh my God, this woman, she comes up. Now, this is supposed to be a victim impact statement. I don't know why she's chose to go up, but she does. And you imagine that she's gone up to, tell Dominic and Davion's families how sorry she is, and, how bad she feels, and I don't know why she got up, but you imagine that's what she's getting up to say. But, well, she says it in a very rushed, quick way at the beginning, like, oh, I just want to say, I'm so sorry, guys. So sorry. This is basically what she's doing. I'm so sorry, guys. But, and then she looks back at the judge and she goes, I just want to let you know that the Facebook posts that were brought up in the trial, You know, I replied to the Facebook post because they were calling her a murderer. So I don't know what she's on about, referring to Dominic's mum, basically saying, I didn't bring up Facebook to her. I just had got onto Facebook because Mackenzie was still in the hospital, so she couldn't reply to it. So I just wanted to tell everyone she wasn't a murderer because they were all calling her a murderer. So she brings that up. Then she brings up the modelling agency thing that we know they both replied to. And she's like, you know, we were just talking about it. And as for Halloween, it was me and her dad that told her to go out. She'd been crying for 3 months, a whole 3 months. And we know it wasn't 3 months because she was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. So it wasn't a full 3 months anyway. Oh, she was crying for the 3 months and she was listening to his music and she was only eating the foods he liked and we wanted her to go out and we just wanted her to have a little bit of fun. Oh my God, I died when I watched it. We just wanted her to have a look. She's in the courtroom with the families of the two boys, her daughter, murdered. And she's there saying, I just wanted her to have a little bit of fun for Halloween. And quite rightly, as she stutters over something, the judge says, all I've heard is you talk about Mackenzie. I haven't heard you mention the victims. And she's like, well, yeah, Dominic, I just want you to know she thought the world of him and Davion, she didn't really know him that well. And the judge is like, oh, well, I suppose his life doesn't matter. Then she's like, no, I didn't mean that. But, they did all love each other. So a whole sort of, what's the word, narrative, she'd ruined it because she says they didn't actually know each other that well because the narrative had been they loved each other and she would never have done it. So she cocked up in her victim statement anyway. I thought she did. So she just sounded like a complete prat. She then turned around, says sorry, looks at Mackenzie, says I love you, and then goes back to her seat. It's just a complete circus. It's horrific. I don't know how Davion or Dominic's mums kept their hands off her. I know they had to in the court, but oh my God. Anyway, so Mackenzie, then I'm a bit annoyed at this, but she's sentenced to 15 years for the death of Dominic Russo, and she's sentenced to 15 years for the murder. Sorry, did I say death? For the murder of Dominic Russo and 15 years for the murder of Davion Flanagan. But the issue for me is these sentences run concurrent. They don't run consecutive. And as we know, consecutive is one after the other. Concurrent is at the same time. So she only does 15 years before she can apply for parole. And I was so disappointed. I mean, the judge was saying, she didn't know how best to approach it and everything else. But I think everyone thought she would get the 15 years for both. And I think the families would have, of course, they would have preferred life without parole. But I think they maybe would have settled with that. But the fact that it was concurrent, it's just, that's hard to stomach. So she can actually apply for parole in 2037. She'll be 33. She can still have children. She can still go on and live her life when she gets out. Now, they have said just because she can go up for parole, it doesn't mean she'll get parole. So it remains to be seen. But I was disappointed, I've got to say. Now Davion's parents, Jamie and Scott, they have since then set up a trust which for raising money for kids to go to barber school in Davion's name, because that's what he really wanted to do. They said they know that's what he would have wanted. Very sad. I've seen an interview with them. Seem a lovely couple, and there's just, I've said before, if it was me, I'd go into a hole, you'd never see me again. And then you have got some parents that can go out there and they can, you know, set up these charities and everything else and trusts that in their kids' names. And I think it's amazing. I think it really, really is. I've said I just can't imagine I'd be able to do it, but I just think it's amazing that they have the strength to do something like that after what they've gone through. And yeah, Mackenzie herself, I don't think she feels bad. In fact, I know that there are people out there on social media that are fighting for her in regards to saying that she's still saying she was innocent. Because don't forget, she still says she can't remember. I don't remember anything. So there are people out there that are defending her, saying she's innocent. It was an accident. She writes to them. They write to her. So, I just can't imagine that I haven't heard she's shown any remorse. And I don't think she will. I don't, from what I can gather about this girl. Everything I heard of her, once she turned a certain age, it's like she just turned into, I've heard the word selfish, I've heard the word cruel, narcissistic, manipulative. I've heard so many words to describe this girl, and none of them are positive. None of them. So that was Hell on Wheels, the appalling Mackenzie Shirilla story. Oh God, just sickening, isn't it? Absolutely, just the concurrent thing doesn't sit well with me either. But that's what it is. So, just awful. Thank you so much for joining me again. Thank you. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. live. If you'd like to join us on the live, Tuesdays are request evening. Thursdays are stories I like to bring that you may not have heard of. Thank you so much for joining. I don't even know how to finish this now. Just absolutely sickening, heartbreaking. Feel for the boys' parents and families and everything. Just awful. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. And yeah, like I say, I'm here on Tuesday. If you'd like to subscribe, that'd be fabulous too. So thank you so much. Thank you.